Like, what is your advice to them to be able to, get through those hard times and be able to get to that end result?
If you're still breathing air, you've already won 100% of the days you've already taken on.
Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. That was actually crazy when I asked you the question. You said, if you're breathing air, then you're winning. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn.
After getting wounded to where I am today, and I've written the 2 books now. I do motivational speaking, and it's like, man, it'd be really cool to sit down with Joe and have a conversation. And if you can sit on your couch and wish things could happen all day long,
Yeah.
but nothing's going to happen from there.
Right.
So if you want to go meet those people and have those conversations, you got to show up. I mean, that's everything in life, is showing up, right? Being there, being present.
100%.
And I don't like to use the analogy, put your best foot forward anymore, considering I lost both my legs and everything. But, when you show up, to always do your best, and like I said, put your best foot forward, and I think it was the whole point of going down there was like, if I want to make that happen, I got to show up. And I showed up, and the first night I tried getting in the club, I couldn't get in. It was sold out. So I was like, shoot, what am I going to do? So called it a night early that night, packed it in, woke up super early the next morning, hit the streets, man. And I thought, somebody around the business district or somebody's got to know Joe, And I bet I talked to 1,000 people. And
That's awesome.
I was like, does Joe even live in this town? Nobody knows this guy, I was at the Capitol. I talked to 3 different state representatives. Like, well, maybe somebody up there will know him, And, ended up getting in the club that night. Went to the show. One of the acts was just about over. And I was like, man, I got to go to the bathroom. So I cut to the bathroom. When I came back, Joe was on stage. And I was like, oh, man, he's even here. And next thing you know, he introduces Ron White. Ron White comes up, does just a stellar hour. Joe's set was awesome, too.
Yeah.
And show's over, and I'm hanging out in the bar for a little bit. And I decided I'm going to take off. And I brought a copy of my book to give to Joe if I ran into him. I thought maybe they'd do meet and greets or something afterwards. And they weren't doing that. And on the way out in the hallway, then I ran to Ron. And I was like, hey, Ron, I feel kind of like a jerk right now because I didn't bring you a book. Had I known you were going to be here, I would have brought you a copy. But can you give this to Joe? And he's like, thanks for everything you've done. And sometimes I think, I'm on a Segway. That's what I use for a wheelchair, essentially, 2-wheel wheelchair. And missing both of my legs. And my right arm's pretty jacked up, pretty gnarly looking. I think sometimes it catches people off guard,
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it was something I had to get used to at first,
Yeah.
It was just catching people off guard in a sense of, I think a lot of times people look at me and think, what if that was me, or put themselves in that situation. And I always joke in my first book that I wrote, I think people stare because I'm so damn handsome, but.
Amen. Hey, no damage to the face.
Oh,
Save the
man.
money maker.
That's right.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I mean, I feel like that what you're doing, and for anyone just trying to get out there, like you hear so many stories about people taking that risk, putting themselves in the situation, sending 1,000 cold outreaches, being in the right place at the right time. You're putting yourself in those areas to be successful and to get the outcome that you desire. And just even doing that, like talking to 1,000 people on the street, like that is shit that most people won't do, but that is what it takes at the end of the day to get to where you want to go, 1. And 2, if you're really trying to like get in front of those types of people, you got to at least like do those things. Give yourself the best chance.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
So that's awesome that you're even, doing that and putting yourself in those situations, because most people will be like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to go on Joe Rogan. Or they have an idea of like, I want to start this business, or I want to do this thing, and I want to climb Mount Everest or whatever it is. And then they're like, yeah,
it's like
they sit on it.
Many people have told me that they, want to write a book, and it's like, well, how's your outline coming? Well, I haven't put anything down yet. Well, then it's just a dream, it's not a goal. If it's just, if it's not written down, it's just a hope and a dream. If you actually put it on paper, you have something, and people see me, doing my motivational speaking, and things are going very well with that. always out there sharing my story. And guys say, man, must be nice, being able to go out there and have all these opportunities and stuff. And it's like nobody was there when I was doing 1,000 speeches for free when they were awful. You know what I mean? When I was no good and I was learning, and trying to get the reps in, and nobody was there when I was, up in my basement all night long talking to the wall, pretending like it was an audience going through
Yeah.
going through my speech. Because, like I said, when I show up and people want me to come share my story, I want to give the best that I can, And
Yeah.
I think one of the cool things is when I do go out and share my story, it's genuine, it's raw. I literally tell it, relive that day with you,
Yeah.
And if you ever hear me tell my story, it's generally the same story every time, but there's little bits and pieces every single time because I'm
Yeah.
literally reliving that moment and tell you
Yeah.
what I'm seeing. Yeah.
For someone that, is listening for the first time and they're like, who is Jack Zimmerman?
Yeah.
What was that moment like, I guess, for you? You wrote your book and I got to read a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
But what was that moment like? Like, put us in, Afghanistan at that
Yeah.
moment and kind of
Yeah.
reliving that. I'm sure it's pretty tough to say over and over again,
Oh
but
no, I mean it's every time I share my story, I always say every time I share my story, it's to pay tribute to what those guys did that day to save my life, man. Those
yeah,
are the real heroes on the battlefield that day. Everybody says
yeah,
I'm a hero, and I'm like, I got wounded that day, and the guys that drug me off the battlefield in a gunfire are the ones that are the real heroes. But I was just a small kid from Minnesota working as an electrician. I
yeah,
watched 9/11 happen. It's
yep,
like spring of 2009 now, and I was looking at houses, and buying a house. I had a little work experience, and I could buy a house. And remember, I was looking at a house, and I was looking around, and I'm like, man, this cannot be life.
yeah,
This is it, man. I buy this house, and I live here for the next 50 years, and I die. Like this is it. And it kind of scared me real bad. And I was like, this can't. I need more. There's got to be more to life than just this. I didn't know how I was gonna get out of there, and I always wanted to serve, but I never really knew how. I didn't know anybody that really served before me. I didn't really have any mentors, I guess, in a sense,
sure,
And so I never really knew. I always heard, you're gonna go get signed up for something you don't want, or they're gonna swindle you, or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And then when I found out I kind of wanted to do the thing that they signed up everybody for that they said they didn't want to do, I was like, oh, this is easy, And sitting at work, um, at the break table, and that's kind of where I decided this is it. I'm gonna go join after work. And
yeah.
I left work, walked into the recruiter station, and I said I want to go to Iraq or Afghanistan. I want to get there as fast as I can. I want to be on the front lines. How do I do that?
Wow,
And they're like, don't move,
wow,
And at the time, the surge had been going on in Iraq.
yeah,
They knew a surge was ramping up to happen in Afghanistan. And I joined as an infantryman, but when I joined, I said the only thing I want to do is I want to make sure I can get the opportunity to jump out of planes. That was important to me.
nice. What
And
made
yeah,
you like say, I want to? Not only do I want to stop what I'm doing now and serve,
yeah,
because I think everyone kind of has that moment where they realize, okay, there's got to be more to life than this.
yeah,
It happened for me too, like shortly after school, playing sports. I played football in college and
yeah,
then went into the medical device field and was working and, traveling a lot and doing all those things. It was really shortly after that where I was like, wow, I mean, there's gotta people just do this
this
for
is
the rest
it.
of their life. Like there's no way.
Yeah, 2 weeks of vacation a year is what we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
It's like that can't be it.
Yeah. I'm like, what is it? So that was actually a catalyst to start the show because I just had this internal feeling of like, there's got to be more. Let's start talking to people who maybe have done things that I want to do or have different insights or, could offer value to myself and other people. So I feel like everyone at one point in their life has that moment of like,
Yeah,
is this it? But for you, like you're working and then you just flip a switch. Not
yeah.
only do you want to go serve now, but you want to go and be in the action and jump out of planes. Like,
I couldn't imagine just joining. It's like shooting to be on the practice squad for a professional football team.
right, right.
That's kind of what it looked like at doing anything other than asking to be on the front lines, And if I said I want to go serve my country, I want to go serve my country into the fullest capacity that I felt like I could, And
Mhm.
like when you think about when I think about a soldier, personally, it's just me, you know. Everybody has
Right,
their
right.
own beliefs and everything, but like for me, when I think of a soldier, I think of the guys that were storming the beaches in World War II. You know, I don't think about the guy that was driving a truck 10 days later behind him resupplying. You know, and so I was like, man, if I'm going to join, I want to be one of those guys. I want to be one of the men, you know, on the front lines. You know, and so I joined, and I had an airborne contract, but I couldn't imagine being a kid from Minnesota being in Georgia in July. So I told him I had a wedding at the end of August that I had to be in, so I couldn't leave. And so I left September 1st, 2009. Went to basic training in infantry school then through the rest of the year of 2009. Graduated in December, then ended December. And as an infantryman, and went right back to Fort Benning in January and did my jump school. I always say the first week is jumping off a log, practicing falling on the ground from a parachute. The next week is you practice getting out of the plane. And they always say if you can get out of the plane and you can land, you'll figure out everything in between. So
Yeah.
third week is jump week. Then I got my 5 jumps and I got my airborne wings. And I was told I was going to Vincenza, Italy, to join the 173rd Airborne Division. And when I got orders then at the end of airborne school, I found out I was going to the 101st Airborne Division out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, just north here of Nashville.
Yeah.
And super excited. I mean, Italy would have been awesome. That would have been the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
Probably saved me a lot of headache and heartache, but you know, it's I'm super glad I got to go join the 101st Airborne Division. I'm so proud of that unit. Just whenever you step onto Fort Campbell, you just feel different. You know, I think it's like if you think about like playing for sports franchises, you know, there's just certain dynasties. Like if you play for the Lakers, you're every time you hit the floor, you're thinking of Kobe, you're thinking of Shaq, you're thinking of all the people that came before you. You know,
Right,
like you're
right.
holding up that legacy. You know, but it's even greater in this situation. You know. Fast forward to June, then after joining the 101st Airborne Division, it's D-Day 2010. 101st Airborne Division, our most historic day in unit history. I'm deploying to Afghanistan, and all those guys were there to give us these speeches to send us off, and it was so cool. Listening to those guys, and you're thinking, man, if those guys did what they did, you know, with the equipment that they had, this undertaking shouldn't be too difficult, you know. And we got to Kandahar then through a long series flights, and we kind of knew there was stuff that was big stuff was coming, you know. We were preparing for Afghanistan, period. We didn't really know what our full mission was going to be until we got there. When we got there, we found out we were going to be the tip of the spear. We were the ones that were the driving force of the surge into the Zari district, and the Zari district was the home of the Taliban. That was where they first originated. That was their backyard, and we were going to be the first Americans to ever go in there and occupy it. And after a short time of climatizing there at Kandahar Airfield, we took off then on helicopters and flew out. Started building a base called Housing Madad right on the north side of Highway 1, and that's kind of where we got all of our first. You know, the first time we got shot at, the first time we got mortared, all that. And it was exciting, but we really weren't gunfighting. We were just kind of holding an area. Well, they built us a base out there because there's nothing else out there. We were the first Americans.
Yeah. I mean, I have to you have to think that like you're going into hostile territory. They know you're there.
No intel because
No
nobody's ever been
intel.
there.
Yeah. And then how are you deciding, you know, where you're putting camp? And then I mean, it has to somewhat feel like you're a sitting duck.
I mean, we're essentially going in to take their White House, essentially. You know what I mean? That's their capital. It's their backyard. It's their home. We ended up building a base within a half a mile of the largest Taliban graveyard in the world. You know, that's where
Wow.
they're. I mean, that's how. That's their land. You know, like that's their home. And so we got in there, and as soon as we crossed Highway 1, that was kind of like the line in the sand. You know.
Yeah.
And our goal was then to go from, you figure, a northern line of Highway 1, and the southern line a few miles down would be the Arghandab River, and everything in between there we had to go take. And basically, we just gun fought day in and day out and worked our way down to the river. We eventually built a base called Ahmed Khan, um, called it AK for short. And that's really where most of it went down. And on our way down to Ahmed Khan, it was October. That's when I lost my best friend. He was killed. The only reason we were actually out that day, we left the base that were staying at there. We're headed for a man-made mountain called Gundigar, and it was literally buckets of sand out of the Arghandab River for Alexander the Great to stand on and oversee the whole Arghandab River Valley.
Wow, that's
And
crazy history.
yeah, it's surreal.
That's
Like
nuts.
that's how long this place has been, you know?
Yeah.
And we had a base built on top of it because why not? That's awesome, you know? And
That's an American thing to do.
right. Like, but really, it was like the best place to get helicopters in and out of. It was
Right.
the safest place. You couldn't shoot mortars up there.
High ground.
Yeah, super high for this river valley. Everything was just flat, fertile soil down there. You know, it's fields as far as you could see of marijuana and opium. That's all it was. You know,
Wow.
great fields here and there sporadically, but mainly just all marijuana and opium. And so our whole goal was to get from the base that we were at. We had to get about 1.5 miles to get land to Gundigar, and he was going home to meet his daughter. She was born 2 weeks before that, and he was in my truck at the time. We got the radio call that his daughter was born, and I got to tell him his daughter was born and how much she weighed, and mom was doing good. And 2 weeks had passed now, and it's like he's ready to go home and meet her. And we're on our way to Gundigar, and we had to go through this one village. And I just remember there's walls on both sides, really high. And we had to cross this one culvert in the middle of town. When we were coming into town, we seen 2 guys running. And anytime you see people running, you just know they're up to no good, right? Because there's no reason to run in Afghanistan. Like there's zero reason to run. Like there's no running water, there's no electricity. So there's like, it's not like somebody left a tub on. It's not like
Yeah.
somebody left a pie in the oven.
Yeah.
Like they're running for a reason. They're trying to kill you. And we tried pushing through town, and we got to the middle. There's 4 trucks, and when the 3rd truck was going over the culvert in the middle of town, and they detonated an IED and disabled the truck, and everybody was okay in the truck. I mean, it was a big blast. I mean, the truck, these are very heavy up armored trucks. I mean,
Yeah.
elevated 6-8 feet off the ground from this blast, you know? And we're hitting the ground, and everybody came out, and everybody was good, and everybody was dismounting then to go try to recover this truck. We were going to try to drag it out of the middle of town so we didn't get ambushed from every side. We figured an ambush is coming, you know? And so we're trying to hook up the trucks, and the one truck that we had right in front of it wasn't the truck that was going to pull it. We had to get the truck that was up in front of the convoy, backed up to it, and land, having everything checked in to go home on leave. Just had his body armor on, was all. He got out of the truck to help. Man, he had no business being out there. He didn't have a gun or nothing. He's literally just going out there to help.
Yeah.
And I think he grabbed somebody. He just wasn't going to get a truck without a gun. I think he grabbed somebody else's gun that was like in the gunner's turret or something. And he was down the ditch backing up my buddy Corb. And he was maybe 15 yards from me. And he stepped on a pressure plate right down in the ditch. And it was me and 2 other guys that weren't on the ground. I was still in the truck talking to battalion on the radio, relaying messages. And the other guys, one other guy was in both other guys were in the guns of the trucks that had doors closed on them. And everybody else was on the ground, and everybody else took shrapnel in the blast and from the secondary, and killed land instantly. And that was by far my worst day in Afghanistan, you know? And you know, he never got home to meet his daughter. You know, it was just a rough day. And the fighting really kind of slowed down, honestly, in like November and December. And then January, New Year's Day, it was a brawl. We had a brawl on New Year's Day, and it was back on. And we gun fought then through January. And February came around, and everybody got to take 2 weeks of leave, like your mid-tour R&R. And I got to go home, and I'm not really good with dates, but I can remember like events really well. And I remember it was sometime between, so I keep track of things in my life, somewhere between the Super Bowl and the Daytona 500.
Those are benchmarks.
Yeah. Somewhere in there, I got to come home on my 2 weeks of leave, and spent the end of February then back home in Minnesota. You know, like looking back, you know, I could have got a plane ticket to anywhere. Anywhere. I could have had people that I wanted to see come meet me in Vegas. I could have went to Florida. I could have went anywhere. The Army would have bought me a ticket anywhere, and I chose Minnesota. I was like, wow.
Why did I do that?
Didn't think about that. I went back to Minnesota, but I want to go see all my friends and everything. I turned 21 in Afghanistan, so I was ready to really cut loose. And I was joking. I don't really remember the first week being home. The second week, though, I got busy. I went and seeing, grandma, grandpa, and everybody else and family and whatnot. And headed back to Afghanistan. It was just a few short days later. I'm up in a guard tower. I remember getting relieved. It was like, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. My guard tower was like right outside of our tents where we stayed. And I had all my gear in one hand. I had my saw, my machine gun in my other hand. And I walked around the corner to come in to the tent there. And there was like a awning off the tent and a deck out in front of it. And everybody kind of hang out there, smoking, eating. You just kind of hung out outside the tent because everybody's working on. We were literally working on about 20 hours a day. You were doing something. You had about 4 hours of free time a day to sleep, eat, clean yourself up, whatever. And so you kind of respected everybody's time when they were in their rack, And so everybody kind of hung out outside the tent. And I remember going and somebody said that everything, the assignments for the day, what we were doing was kind of up on the whiteboard. Go check it out. So I went in the tent. I set all my gear down. I went up and looked at the whiteboard, and I seen I was going to go on patrol that morning, which is very normal. We run 2 to 3 patrols a day out of our cop there, company outpost. And I said I was going on patrol, but I said, we never put times on anything because we never want anybody to know when we're leaving, where we're going.
Right.
We don't really do a briefing until right before we leave. Working with the Afghan National Army, there was just a lot of concern of somebody being infiltrating it, And so every time we ever gave our plans early, it felt like they knew we were coming. So we kind of changed our tactics,
Yeah.
And so we were getting ready to roll out, and my buddy, he gives a mission briefing, says, get your stuff on, and we're getting ready to roll out. And as soon as we head out the gate, I was out in front. I was on the right flank by myself, saw gunner. My team leader was out in front, Sergeant Hurley, and then 2 riflemen to his left. And then we had a bunch of support elements and a gun team in the middle, and then a whole nother team just like ours there in the back. Saw gunner, 2 riflemen, but staggered opposite. And we always have like a radio guy with us, a medic. We never left without a medic. And radio guy, our first sergeant was out there, whole array of people. And our whole mission was to go up and steal this cache from the Taliban. And the cache would be like where all their IED making materials, their guns, ammunition, all that. We're going to go steal it from them. And they're not just going to let you walk up to it and take it.
Right.
And so probably going to be booby trapped on the way in, IEDs. And for the first part, up until like New Year's, we really didn't encounter many IEDs, really. I feel like they really wanted to kill us. Like they didn't want an IED to kill us. They wanted to kill us. And I think the beating that they had taken to that point, they said, all right, we just can't straight up gunfight these guys. We got to ambush them, complex ambushes. So we rolled around, just from our imaging and things. When we got to the top side of this village, there's a big dirt berm that we couldn't see from the imaging that we had. And my team leader says, hey, run up on top of that berm, and we're just coming around this huge village. We're just getting into it. And as soon as I get up on top of that berm, I see 2 guys running into town again. And I was like, oh. I said, hey, called it out right away. We got 2 guys running this and that. And my team leader says, hey, keep an eye on them, see what buildings they go into. And about that time, I looked down and I realized I was standing on top of an IED. And I was like, man, this is bad. And I jumped off that IED. I could just see a little red, like the size of a silver dollar. And I think what happened was that those guys were putting in that IED. They were going to shoot at us, get us to crawl up on that dirt berm because it was super natural place to go crawl up onto to get in a gunfight. It was just a really good fighting position. And I think they're going to blow the berm then once we got on it. And so crawled up on top of that berm, seeing that IED, seeing what buildings those guys were running into. I get off that IED, I run all the way down to the end of the berm. My team leader grabs a charge out of his backpack. He puts it on the IED, and as soon as he blows it up, They start shooting at us, thinking we're shooting at them. Gunfight breaks out. We're gunfighting for a while. And next thing you know, Kiowa helicopters come screaming in, start throwing hellfires in all the buildings. And we hang out for a little bit and just see kind of what happens, let the dust settle. And we decided that instead of all the resources that we use, it wasn't wise to keep pushing into town. We're gonna go back, grab some more ammo, water, make a different push, or let somebody else take another crack at it that evening or whatever. And so we did what's called reverse order movements, and all my team's in the back, and we get a little bit of standoff from this village, so we start heading north away from it. And we had this one ditch that we had to cross. And I remember my buddy Vandenbosch, he went up there, he scanned it, and I was the last guy to cross. I got the machine gun, so I'm pulling security for everybody because their back is turned to the village and everything as they're jumping across this ditch. So I'm making sure nobody's shooting at us. They all jump across. Now I'm the last. My two riflemen on my team jump across. Now they pull rear security for me. I jump across, and we all start fanning back out. And I'm going back out to the right flank where I'd been all day. And my team leader says, "Hey, I want my machine gun on the left flank because that's the village side."
Yeah.
So I flip the sides of the formation, and I get over on the left side, and we're walking across this wide open field. And our interpreter always carried a radio, and he could hear the Taliban talking on their radios. And he's got his earpiece in, and next thing you know, he hears the Taliban talking on there, and he says they're getting ready to attack us again. Get ready. And I asked my team leader, I said, "Hey, Sergeant Hurley, where do you think they're gonna hit us from?" And he goes, "I don't know, Jackie boy." I don't. Wham! I stepped right on it, right there, out in the middle of that field, and I remember myself flipping through the air. I remember the heat crawling up my back, and I just remember flipping and flipping and flipping, and I was like, "Man, it was like a bad dream." I was like, us falling, I was like, "Am I ever gonna hit and land?" And remember landing finally, and I had the wind knocked out of me twice. Once on the way up, once on the way down. Couldn't really breathe. There's so much like dust and sand and everything in the air. And I remember my mouth, my face, and everything being coated in it. I couldn't really see anything because I had so much blood and mud smeared on my glasses, just from the blast. Um, and the dust so thick. Couldn't hear anything. My eardrums were perforated from the blast going off right underneath me. And laying there senseless, really. And the first thing I noticed was my left arm. Like right below the elbow was broken in half. And I could see that I needed a tourniquet bad on my left arm. The whole bottom side of my arm was blown out. And that was the only thing I knew that was wrong with me at this point. And I was trying to get my arm back to my first aid kit that was like on my left hip, but I couldn't get my arm rotated back because when I landed, I felt my shoulder break. I landed right on my shoulder and my neck, and I felt my shoulder break. So I couldn't really rotate my arm back to get to my first aid kit. So I was like, I know I got another tourniquet in my night vision pouch, and that was on my right, right in the front on my right side. I was trying to dig in a pouch in there, and I was trying to get it open. I'm like, man, why can't I get this pouch open? And I remember like looking over, and the dust is kind of clear enough now. You can kind of see close enough, And I looked over at my left or my right arm here, and right below my elbow again, snapped in half, but this one's like hanging straight, like clean snapped in half, hanging straight down. And every time my heart beats, I can see the blood spraying out of my arm, And I'm like, man, I don't have any hands right now. No idea my legs were even hurt yet. I didn't even think they were hurt, really. I just seen my arms were hurt. Yeah. And I felt super hot and tingly all over. I always feel like I got smacked in the balls with a baseball bat. That's what kind of hurt, that feeling I had that just hurt my guts real bad, And I just remember laying there kind of like curled up almost like in a crunch position because it just hurt so bad, And about that time, my buddy Daniels, he came sliding in on top of me, and he started tourniqueting my arms for me. And the whole time he was doing that, I kept telling him, "Hey, man, you got to get off my boys. You're pinching my stuff."
Yeah.
What he's doing is he had his knees in my femoral arteries on my legs, pinching those off while he was tourniqueting my arms. And about that time, Doc came sliding in, and he cut my gear off me, my kit, and everything. And he took my body armor off. And when he pulled my body armor off, that's when I sat up to get out of there. And that's when I realized that my right leg had been completely tore off pretty much. And my left leg from the knee down was pretty much gone, but my foot was still there on my left leg, but it was just like clean bone from the knee to my ankle. And that's kind of when it dawned on me how tough a shape I was in. I was basically a quadruple amputee, and just being over there for 9 months and how violent the area was, and like seeing so many guys being injured, it was pretty easy to see where my fate was headed. And seen a lot of it over the last 9 months, and people like me didn't survive. And those guys were working on me, and Doc got a ratchet strap around my right leg, and I remember how bad that hurt. And to stop the bleeding as a tourniquet, and they had like 3 tourniquets on my left arm, or on my left leg, 2 on each arm. And at first, I was able to talk to him, and like we were talking about the silliest stuff. Like me and Daniels were gonna move in together when we got back, and he's like, "You're still bringing the couch, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Pretend like nothing even happened. And just trying to things to talk about. I remember talking about what kind of bow I was gonna buy when I got back in archery, and just all kinds of stuff. You're laying there bleeding out, just trying to have a conversation about anything you could think about,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point where like my mouth was so dry I couldn't even talk anymore, and I just kind of told him I was like, I can't talk anymore. Like my mouth is just too dry. And I remember I was ready to fight Doc for anything, and he finally put a piece of some water on some gauze and shoved it in the corner of my mouth for me to suck on. And I kind of went in like we have like a cadence, when we march, left, right, and that's kind of what I started doing in my head, just shaking my head. I remember staring up into the sun. It was just like right, left, right, and just trying to shake my head and make a conscious effort to stay alive. I just knew I had to do something. And then like breathing was getting pretty hard, and I was getting pretty weak, and thinking and just shaking my head was becoming difficult. And I kind of realized like this is it. And like the whole time I was there, like I never really felt panicked. I never really was like worried about dying. Um, but like I had a incredible sense of ease wash over me. I knew that like whether I lived or I died, I was gonna be okay. I was gonna be saved. And I knew if I lived, there was a purpose for me, and if I died, then I was needed somewhere else. And I just kind of accepted that was whatever happened, happened. And there's nothing I could really do. I had no control over the situation. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely helpless. And I had to rely on 6 or 8 other men that I would call more than family to do everything that
Yeah.
they could to get me out of there that day. Little did I know, like, we're taking rounds this whole time. The Taliban's shooting at us this whole time. Those guys are working on me. Helicopters inbound coming from Kandahar. Um, they bandaged me up the best they could, and I remember telling all my guys, to everybody back home, I love them. That's the last thing I got out. I didn't think I was gonna get out of there, and I knew that they knew who I was talking about. I mean, we were together for 9 months. That's all we did was talk. We didn't have TV or anything else. That's all we did was talk. And so I was like, they knew who to tell that I loved. And I remember seeing my whole life start flashing before my eyes, like stuff as little as like 4 or 5 years old, just up until like days before getting wounded. And what I realized, like when my life was flashing before my eyes, it wasn't, it was me and my buddies playing baseball. You know, it was me and my buddies fishing. Sitting in a boat fishing and riding around in a truck drinking beer. And what I realized was that it didn't matter that we weren't playing in Yankee Stadium. You know, it was the people that I was on the baseball field with. Didn't matter we weren't fishing out of a brand new Camus boat. It was probably an old worn out John boat. We were bailing
Yeah.
water off half the time. But I was out there on the water with my buddies. I was riding around the truck with my buddies. Like didn't matter the truck. It was the people that I was with. Like that was the whole point of life. It's like you can go do the coolest thing, but it's way cooler to experience it with somebody else. Anything in life. Like that's why we love concerts. Like that's where we met, is at a concert. You
Yeah.
know, you could sit there and listen to one person play a guitar by himself, and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then all of a sudden you pack the Bridgestone Arena with a bunch of people and you play a song and you're like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
That's life, you know?
Yeah.
The more people that you can invite into your life and have these experiences with and learn from, and that's what life is about, really. I mean, it's not trying to see how much we can accumulate of things, you know? It's about how much we can accumulate of how much do we help other people? Do we make anybody else's life better? Were we good men? Were we good stewards of the land that we lived on? Did we find things more often better after we left them? You know what I mean? Like, these are the things that we should be asking ourselves, you know? These are the things that I asked myself when I was bleeding out on the battlefield. Was I a good man? Did the people that I know or people that I loved know that I loved them? Did I honestly go chase the dreams that I wanted to chase? Did I feel like I lived a noble life? Did I live with a purpose? You know what I mean? Like, you ask yourself these things as you're bleeding out. And it just changed my perspective on how everything in life looked going forward. Especially not knowing if I was ever going to wake up again. And those guys loaded me up and they slid me on that helicopter, and you could hear the rounds ripping off the helicopter trying to shoot it down. And I remember the flight medic and doc talking, and the bird picks up and we take off. And I've flown around a lot of helicopters, and that was the fastest I ever took off. And we were up and out of there, and I remember like I could barely even see. I was so out of blood. My vision was starting to get pretty blurry. Breathing was about impossible. And that flight medic, he jumped on top of me and he's like, "This is gonna hurt." I thought, what can you do to me at this point?
Yeah. What are you talking
Right.
about,
What can you
Doc?
do to me at this
Have you
point to
seen
hurt
me?
me? Yeah. And he jumps on top of me and he's puts a fast one right in the middle of my sternum. And it's I don't know how many, like 5, 10 gauge needles or something like that. And he punched that thing right in my sternum, and I can still put my finger on it to this day because it still hurts. And he punched that deal in there, and that's how I started getting fluid. You couldn't even find a vein on me to feed me fluids at this point. I was so out of blood. And he started feeding me my fluids through my bones then. And by the time he got that first bag of saline in me, breathing became pretty easy. I could really see again. By the time I landed at Kandahar and he had that second bag going on me, I was feeling like to the point where I could talk again, and we landed on the airfield. Helicopter shut all the way down, and that's a first for me. I'd never been in a helicopter where it shut all the way down. Usually that thing would touch the ground and I'd be bailing out of it. And helicopter shut all the way down, and I could hear it beeping, and there's a truck backing up to the bird, and they pulled me out of the helicopter and slid me in the back of this truck. And maybe the most pivotal moment of my life. And they slid me in the back of that truck. My anesthesiologist was on my left. My surgeon was on my right. And the anesthesiologist asked me first, he said, "Are you allergic to anything?" And I was like, "Yes, penicillin." And he's like, "Really not worried about that right now." And the surgeon then asked me, or told me if I could stay awake for 5 more minutes. He promised me my life. And obviously I took him up on that bet. And
Sure.
not a lot of downside to that. And I remember the truck backing up to the hospital and then pulling me out of the back of the truck and put me on this 2-wheel cart and rolling me down this hallway. And it was like light, hard right. And my team leader, I could hear him screaming one curtain over. He took a big piece of steel, come flying out of there and bounced off his shoulder and his head. And he was in the chopper with me. And I could hear him over there screaming. He didn't want me to die alone. And I was like, "Thanks for the confidence." And they picked me up, and that was kind of like the first time reality really set in on how badly wounded I really was the way they picked me up off that litter and put me on the operating room table. Just the way that 2 people grabbed on to, I mean, I was at the time when I was wounded, I was 6'3", 240 pounds,
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it's a big dude, when
Yeah.
the Taliban literally said on the radio when I got hit, "We got the big guy," And for 2 people that shouldn't have no business picking me up, just grabbed me and just set me on this operating room table with just, that's when it dawned on me, how wounded I was, what was left of me. And now it kind of dawned on me because everybody looks the same. I don't know where that surgeon is that I made a deal with. Everybody's got the same gown on, same mask, same shield, same everything. And I'm laying there, and this nurse is shaving my chest and putting these stickies on me, and I remember just like everybody was doing their job so effective and efficiently that they were so focused on what they were doing, and they realized the seriousness of the situation, and they were all working as fast as frantically as they could. So I'm just laying there all kind of all by myself, and I look at this nurse because I was like, man, am I even alive? Like it was just kind of surreal moment, you know. And I just want to say something so like somebody would say something back to me just to feel alive in a sense. And all I could think to say was, "This is the first bone I ever broke." I told that nurse that, and she was shocked. I remember looking at the baffled look on her face, and her eyes is really all I could see, but you could just tell she was really taken back, you know. And she's like, "Well, you broke a lot of them." That's how she could get out, you know.
Jeez.
And next thing you know, a guy standing over me trying to put a mask on me, and I'm fighting him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" You know. And I said, "I had a bet with a guy that I could stay awake for 5 minutes." And he starts yelling for Doc, and Doc comes over to the end of the table there, and he says, "Hey man, your 5 minutes is up. You can go to sleep." And the guy told me to count back from 10, and probably not so politely, I told him to f off. My last memory on Earth wasn't going to be one, and that's all I could think about was if I was ever going to wake up again, you know, and what I want to think of when I leave this place, you know. I couldn't imagine getting to heaven and God being like, "Really, Jack? One? That's what you want to think about on the way out? Oh, that whole life you lived." And so I thought about all the best times I've seen in my life flashing before my eyes on the battlefield. That's what I drifted off to sleep to. And I woke up 6 days later then in San Antonio. It was a long journey from Kandahar to Bagram to Launchstool. Stopped at DC at Walter Reed for a minute, but never got off the plane there. And then they flew me straight to San Antonio where I woke up.
Wow. That's incredible
Yeah.
that journey from, that far that you had to get back to San Antonio.
Best flight I ever had.
Yeah.
Easy layovers.
Yeah.
It's in a coma the whole time.
Yeah.
But no, when I was there at like Launchstool and stuff, I had so much dirt and mud and shrapnel and debris packed in all my wounds, you know, so that'd be getting washed out. And every time they try to wash me out, my vitals would plummet and I'd about die, you know. So much so that like they had my family and they were making sure that they had their passports and stuff to like come see me in Germany potentially to say like their final goodbyes and stuff, you know. But I made it to Texas. I remember the first time I woke up, the nurse was leaving the room and I was like, "Hey, never mind. Ventilator's still in." Next time I woke up, my ventilator was out. My whole family was standing around me, and all I could think was, "What are you guys doing here? Don't you know how bad it is in Afghanistan?" Because I had no idea they moved me. As far as I knew, I'd been out for a couple hours. And the next time I woke up, my whole family was around me again. And I remember when everybody was talking, it was so hard to understand everybody. And like, you have all these, you have 6 days worth of thoughts rushing through your head in about 30 seconds, And you're just trying to figure out where am I? If you ever partied too hard and you woke up on a couch and you're like, whose couch is this? That's kind of that feeling times 10, And it all starts kind of coming back to you and you're like, oh yeah, I did get medevaced, And you're like, why did I get medevaced? Like, oh yeah, I stepped on a dang IED, And then it just kind of all starts, like little pieces just start coming together, little here, more and there. And as everybody's standing around you, you can hear all this talking going on around you, but you can't understand any of the words. It's like wah 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 wah. I always joke like Snoopy, like the teacher on Snoopy. And I even remember having the thought, like, man, did I have something knocked loose, or my eardrums like that broken, like I'm just never gonna hear right
Right.
again? You have all these thoughts, because you have no idea what's even going on or what's left of me. And finally, I remember my dad catching my attention. He goes, "Hey, if you can hear us, just say something so we know you can hear us." And no joke, first words out of my mouth, "What do I got to do to get the hell out of here?" Didn't want to be in the hospital. That's the last place I wanted to be. And from that moment on, it was head down, moving forward. In Afghanistan, anytime we stood still, we got ambushed, we got attacked. And anytime they ambush you and attack you, it's because they feel like they have you in the best position. And I was going to use that analogy for the rest of my life. I was going to keep moving. I was just going to keep going. I had no idea what the rest of my life was going to look like. I had no idea what parts I was going to have left. I knew nothing other than I had control over one thing in this whole situation, and that was my attitude. And from that day forward, I have my moments, I have my hard days. There's times where certain times of the year, especially that get really hard, where it feels like a tsunami ready to take me under, you know. But you learn how to anchor yourself through the things that you've been through already, and how to weather the storm, and how to ride those things out, you know. And it gets easier and easier and easier, you know? But laying there in the hospital bed when I reacted positively, so did everybody else around me. And I learned that very fast, right? If you think about any project you ever do in life, the minute somebody has a bad attitude or flies off the handle or freaks out, everybody has an ill reaction, you know?
Hmm.
If there's one place in life that you can't have, that you need to have the most emotional control ever, is in a gunfight. So I knew how to control every emotion that I ever had. I just had to figure out how to do it outside of a gunfight, you know?
Humanly, yeah, a little more.
And so, yeah, I just started focusing on that and moving forward. And, I had no arms. Like, still to this day, my right hand doesn't do me much good. I lost my thumb and my pointer finger on there and don't really have a lot of function in my hand, but I do things with it and I'm grateful for it. Um, My left hand, I was right-handed with everything before, so I had to relearn how to do everything left-handed, and on top of that, with my shoulder being broken and my arm being broken at the elbow and all the hardware I had to be put in to make all that stuff work again, um, when I woke up, I literally had to learn how to touch my thumb to my index finger again, and then to my middle finger, and, like, literally reconnect each finger to my brain again. I had to do everything over. Like, when I went to sleep at night, I'd have to put a towel in my hand, or the next morning when I would wake up, my hand would be locked shut, and I'd have to start my day off by just trying to get my hand open.
Yeah.
I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't eat. I couldn't take a drink of water. Everything had to be done for me. So my first mission was just to touch my nose again. And it sounds like such a easy, mundane task, but at this point in life, I wasn't even close. And that's what I spent the rest of my days doing for the next week or two, is just trying to touch my nose. And eventually I did, and it set me up for success for everything I needed to do the rest of my life. And little did I know that was going to be such a monumental moment in my life, because I would sit there all day long. And the first couple of days, I thought, this is never going to happen. Like, it's just not, like, if you see how far my head is from my hand, it's just not going to happen. Like, I'm too broken. But they kept reassuring me that if you just keep pushing, just keep pushing. And I was like, all right, these
Yeah.
guys believe that I can, then you know? As soon as I was able to do it, I was like, oh man, why did those guys believe in me more than I believed in myself? And what I realized was, the first time I touched my nose, was that it changed everything inside of me, because I knew it could be done. And that's how I looked at everything going forward. Was the first time I was going to do anything was going to be the hardest. And after that, it just, everything changes in your mind. And that's everything you do. Like, the first time you ever podcasted was the hardest time you ever podcasted in your entire life. The first time you ever did your own episode for this show, because you knew nothing. The next time you posted it, it might not even go as smooth. There could have been more errors, but it was easier than the first time you did it. And now it's like, not a matter of if you can do it. It's just a matter of making the time to do it now, right? Like, you don't even question your ability to do this anymore, because this is what you do, right? And that's what I had to turn into for me, is just, now when I get up out of bed at night, I don't put my feet on the floor to move from the bed. I have to jump into a wheelchair. And I always say, every morning that I jump into a wheelchair, it's a reminder of one of two things: either everything that I've been through and poor me, why this have to happen to me,
Mhm.
or a reminder of all the hell that I've been through and what can stop me today.
Yeah. When you're making this adjustment, coming back into your now new life, what kind of motivated you to say, all right, now I want to take my circumstance that I've been dealt in life and impact other people and start writing books and start speaking and sharing my story. Like, what was that point for you?
Yeah, so I was really lost when I woke up. I say everything that I most important thing for me was I wanted to be worth saving. I didn't want to come home and just lay around the rest of my life and do nothing because what was the point of saving my life then?
Yeah.
And I owed it to the guys that drugged me off the battlefield that day, the sacrifices that they made to go make the best life that I possibly could. So I didn't know what that looked like. If you're ever wondering how Jack Zimmerman was as a student in school, it was awful. But for some reason, I thought when I got out of the army that I was going to take a shot at school. And the first chance that I had at not going to school, I took that opportunity. I was offered a job before I ever started school as broker in insurance. I enjoyed it, but I couldn't sit in an office. It just wasn't for me. There's just no adventure in heading to another little small town to see if somebody wants to sign a life insurance policy. And yeah, I mean, you can make a really good living and it might be good for some people, but from a guy that was just literally jumping out of airplanes and gunfighting day in and day out and everything I'd just been through, sitting in an office shooting emails and answering phone calls wasn't it. Tried training gun dogs for a while. Really enjoyed it. It was really what I needed at the time. I need to go out and train again, work at getting better at something every single day, competing, pushing myself physically, mentally. I needed it at the time, but it wasn't it. Like, it's not something I was going to do the rest of my life. And then I got into politics and I thought, maybe this is the arena that I want to be in. And I went from a world that um, everybody was willing to die for each other to a world that everybody's trying to find the longest knife to stab everybody in the back with,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But I really did. I met so many great people through it. And that's where I really learned how to share my story. And it gave me platform. It gave me a stage. It was something I was passionate about. And I started going out and sharing my story and working through it and getting tips from people who are very. If politicians are good at anything, it's talking. You know,
Yeah.
if I could learn anything from them, that's what I wanted to learn. And when I left the campaign trail, I was encouraged to continue sharing my story, no matter what that looked like. And I didn't know what that looked like. I'd never heard of a motivational speaker really before. I seen some YouTube videos of people like Tony Robbins or anybody like that. And I didn't see myself as being one of those people. I didn't think that anything that I had done up to that point had been incredible by any means. I thought this is just surviving at that point. But I didn't really stop and look and think, wow, look at everything I did go through and look at how I went through it. And I never really ever stop and compare myself to anybody else because everybody's going through their own thing. Everybody else has got their own injuries. Everybody else has got this. So trying to set benchmarks, you got to do it for yourself. And so I continued sharing my story, and next thing you know, I'm booking some events to do motivational speaking, and I got my story worked out, and I have my points worked out. And I always say the difference between an inspirational speaker and a motivational speaker is a call to action. If you're an inspirational speaker, you could hear the story today and say, "Oh man, that inspired me. I feel like doing something." But I wanted to be a motivational speaker. That means I had to have a call to action. And my call to action then was what we opened with was to build your attitude and shape your perspective. So one day when your life does flash before your eyes, it's worth watching. And I built my story around that. And I felt like that was a super powerful moment for me watching my life flash before my eyes. And everybody's life is going to flash before their eyes at some point. And I want to share this message with them because it's coming faster than you think. You need to go live now.
Yeah.
And so I was going anywhere and everywhere I could to speak, and I was loving it. And you've probably heard of this thing before called COVID. It hit, and being a motivational speaker and COVID are do not mix. I was shut down. I thought it was gonna be for like 2 weeks. I'd be laid up, nothing to do, and I'd clean the garage and we'd move on with life. And then it was 2 months, and that was evident it was gonna be a while. And while I was cleaning stuff out, I found all these pieces of paper of stuff that I had put like notes on, like control your attitude, That's the one thing you can do, Don't worry about the things that like, I got an infection right before I got out of the hospital. My first words when I woke up, what I got to do to get out of here. And I get an infection. I'm gonna have to stay 2 weeks longer in the hospital. I was devastated for about 5 minutes, and I had to realize that, like, thank God it happened when it happened. I'm still in the hospital. The world's best surgeons are here. I can control my attitude. And all these things I had, these lessons that I had were just coming to me from all these things that I'd written down on a piece of paper. Like as I was going through it, what would I tell myself when I'm going through that? I would tell somebody, they would write it down, I'd store it. And I found this whole box of all these and I was laid it out and I was thinking about my story as I was telling it. And I was like, man, this could really be a book. And so then I hired a ghostwriter to help me organize it. I mean, I failed English my sophomore year, so I was going to need some help. and they hired a guy out of Texas, Terry. He was in a wheelchair himself. He had polio. I had a dad that lost his leg in Iwo Jima. A son that was a captain in the army. I was like, man, this guy fits. And me and him sat down through COVID, never met each other, and I had my first book published. And COVID lifted. I went back to speaking. And then I was promoting my book with my speaking, and it was fun because people would come to my events, hear me speak, and be like, "Oh, I wish so and so could have been here to hear your story today." And I was like, "Don't worry, I got you covered. Here's a copy of 5 minutes." And it was just a game changer. Just for me, I'm a big legacy guy, and my kids will be able to pass this on to their kids and their kids and their kids. And I mean, right now, if you think about anybody, you ask them about their great great grandfather. Mine was alive until I was 21 years old.
Wow.
The amount of things that I can still tell you about that guy is pretty sad. I don't know a lot about him. I didn't know the questions to ask. I didn't know the things that I could have learned from him. I didn't have any questions other than, where can I get a fake ID? You know what I mean? That was what I was looking for, and great grandpa didn't have many tips on that.
Yeah.
But all that led me to becoming a motivational speaker, writing that book. And when I wrote that first book, it's an undertaking. It's a process. Writing a book is not something you just sit down and do real quick.
Right.
It's a long, long process. And going through that, I enjoyed it. I learned a lot about myself going through that experience. I learned a lot about my own story that I didn't even take time to stop and reflect on as I was going through it enough. And I had so many notes and things that I wanted to talk about after I wrote that first book. And I enjoyed the process so much that I started working on my second one slowly but surely and kind of got that together. And it just it's just been really good. And that's when I came out with my next book, Beyond 5 Minutes. And the one thing that's been consistent through my whole life of before I was wounded, after I was wounded, and still today, what I'm doing, almost 15 years later, is I'm hunting. It's the outdoors. When I was a kid, I didn't know anything existed outside of this little 40 or 60 acres that I hunted as a kid. And now I've been lucky enough to travel essentially all over the world, from Africa, New Zealand, North America, just hunting and sharing those experiences with people and pushing myself further than I ever thought I'd ever be able to go again and going to places that I thought were never reachable with the things that I have left, and all of these things. And I was like, man, there's so many lessons that I've learned and life-changing moments through that whole experience that I need to share with other people. I want to inspire that guy that came back from Afghanistan and doesn't know what to do right now and
Right.
where to go. I want to inspire that kid that wants to go hunting but maybe doesn't have the right person to take him out in the woods, that as long as he wants to hunt and he makes that choice that he wants to hunt, he'll be able to hunt. Like that's half a life. It's just like we said earlier, it's just deciding that you want to do it and then making the effort to make it happen, And I really wanted to leave my mark in there in the sense of I never would have hunted or fished again if somebody really wasn't willing to go out of their way and help me and sacrifice maybe a good day of fishing by themselves in the perfect spot to help me get out there too and do those things. It never would have happened if it wasn't for anybody else. And it got me thinking, like, it's important to, like, as we get older, we have to think back to those people that took us out in the field for the first time. And maybe we got to sacrifice one of our days to get grandpa out hunting one more time. Everybody wants to get a kid out hunting, but maybe we should think about that guy down at the bar that sits down there at breakfast every day, and he's missing a leg. He talks about hunting, but hasn't gone in 20 years. Somebody needs to get him out and get hunting one more time. Let him go pheasant hunt with you. Put him on a bucket somewhere, like whatever it takes. Help people get back outside, get back in the woods, because that's where I did all my healing. That's where I could be raw and real with my own feelings. And sometimes you need to be alone in a deer stand, alone with your thoughts, and the only thing you have to do is confront them and deal
Mhm.
with them and process them and catalog them and put them away and find understanding and acceptance. And then there's times where the last place I need to be is sitting in a deer stand alone with my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I need to be in a duck blind with 4 of my friends, or I need to be out pushing a field edge looking for pheasants, or I need to be out in the boat with 2 other of my buddies and cutting it up about maybe not just life, anything.
Yeah.
Just take me to a different place. Or, hey, I got this thing weighing on me that I really need to talk to you guys about. I just need an outlet right now. Like, don't need any advice. I just need to tell. I just need to get this out.
Yeah.
And that's
For
what
sure.
the outdoors can do for so many people.
Yeah, I agree. There's a certain like solidarity and peacefulness to reconnecting with nature, especially today where everything is so digital and we're always on our phones and if you're working from a laptop or whatever, you're always looking at screens and you're not really connecting back to nature, but there's this thing that's innately inside of us that I feel like it's triggered when you're out there and,
Yeah.
and there is no other distraction and you are with your thoughts and you are connected to nature. And, maybe there is people around, maybe there's not, right? It's a different experience for both. But yeah, I always encourage people like take it detox from technology and get
Yeah.
out into and reconnect with nature because there's so much peace, there's so much wisdom to be found in just being and not worrying about having to be ultra productive or do this or that, but just like being out and being grateful and present in that moment. And that's what I love about it too.
Yeah.
Obviously there's the camaraderie aspect, which I feel like I miss a lot from football the most.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. The team aspect.
yeah, people are like, what do you miss the most about football? And while, strapping it up and getting ready to go to war, which is
Yeah.
less than what you have done, right? But knowing that you're going into a physical altercation with
Yeah.
somebody is an
With the
adrenaline
expectation to
feeling.
win.
Exactly. But those times, in the bunk or in the locker room with the guys, like, and you're shooting the shit and you're hanging out,
Yeah.
like those are the times that you miss. And it sounds like from your experiences too, when your life flashed before your eyes, you were thinking about
Yeah.
those moments with your family and with your friends and the stuff that you can take for granted, right? But when you lose it, you realize like, wow, those were great times. And those are the times that I feel like as we get older, everyone starts going on their path and doing their thing. And it's harder to recreate those moments.
Yeah.
And you have to really be intentional, when you get older and you have kids and you have family to be able to recreate those moments. But they are so important. And they're really all we have, right? Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like those are the things we're going to think about. Those are the things we cherish. I feel like it's funny because people are always like, oh, the old glory days when you're
Yeah.
running around. Everyone remembers the first time they got drunk with their friends or, running around bars in college or whatever it was, right? And while those times are usually times where you're most broke and lost, you don't really know what's going on, but you had that. You were rich in time and you were rich in friendship or at that moment in life.
Probably
And
the happiest.
those are the things that you remember the most
And maybe
you
the
draw
happiest,
back from
yeah.
and then maybe the happiest. Yeah.
And tournament just got over, NCAA basketball. And that's one of the things in my book I close with. I was sitting at the NCAA tournament, already wounded and everything. It was in Minneapolis at the bank. And I was sitting right behind Patrick Mahomes, maybe 2 tiers up, but I was right behind him. But and it was Texas Tech, Virginia, great basketball game. But when they're cutting the net down at the end of the night, Virginia was. These kids had the biggest smile in their face, and it took me back to like thinking about what you just said there, right? And I was like, how can these guys be so happy, right? Like maybe what 1 or 2 of those guys from that team is maybe going to play in the NBA. Most of them, their organized basketball is done for the rest of their lives.
Right.
How can they be so happy right now? I was trying to figure that out. Like, seriously, yeah, I get you won the championship, but devastatingly, you're done. Like, no more basketball for you. No more college basketball. You're graduating. I thought, how can you be so happy? And then I realized it wasn't that it was the joy in the journey, right? It wasn't he wasn't thinking about the shot that he missed in 4th grade that could have won the game. He wasn't thinking about that stupid layup he missed at the hole in front of everybody. He wasn't thinking about, you know, all the bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
Running all the stairs or whatever, you know? He was thinking about all the laughs that they had in the locker room. He was thinking about all the bus rides home that they laughed at, all the games that they did win, all the good stuff along the way. If I think back to like the happiest times in my life, I can tell you exactly how happy I was and why I was so happy.
Yeah.
Every time I go to tell my story, I think about how bad that day was. I don't remember how bad it hurts. I never do. You could say, yeah, I remember breaking my leg and it hurts so bad, but you can never take yourself back to that pain. But you can always take yourself back to the best joys in the world, right? You can relive those memories and you
Yeah.
can feel the inside of yourself warm from those memories. And that's what we have to focus on. That's what our body wants. That's what our mind wants. That's what we're supposed to be doing in this world is going out and finding those amazing experiences and learning from each other. And you know, how often do you get excited about like when you find the smallest hack on you're watching a reel on Instagram and you're like, oh man, that's the best hack ever. And you're all excited and you start living with that thing. Like, why don't people do that with everybody else? Like, I want to learn something from you today that I can apply to my life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be excited about that hack. It's the same thing. It's just real life. It's not a reel, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
let's go learn from each other.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our experiences and let's become the best version of ourselves that we can be every single day.
Yeah. We met at the Cody concert here
Yeah,
here in
Kojo.
Nashville,
Yeah.
and I know that he wrote the foreword for your book, and you guys have been hunting together and stuff. How did you guys meet?
Yeah. So me and Cody Johnson, I was a young kid, freshly wounded, less than 2 years of being wounded. And I got invited out to this ranch, and Cody was there. Kyle Park was there, Roger Krager, just a whole array of guys. John Michael Whippies, George Tritz, piano player. A bunch of these guys were there, and we're hanging out, having a good time. And me and Cody were cutting it up, having fun, and everybody else was out doing whatever. And some other guy was gonna go out for a drive or something. And me and Cody ended up jumping in this truck. We're gonna go out looking for a hog to shoot. And next thing you know, I'm telling Cody my whole story, kind of like I just shared with you guys. And there's a part of my story in there where the first 10 minutes of me laying there bleeding out, and I just kept asking Doc, is my junk okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that really stuck out to Cody. And years later, when I seen Cody again, he's like, I was like, hey, you remember me? He's like, how could I forget? You know? And he's just been really good to me ever since. Anytime I want to go to a show, you know, he's always got a spot for me.
Yeah.
And I just thought with the book being about hunting, and if you know a guy like Cody, every show that you go to, he's going to honor first responders, military, anybody that serves other people, anybody that's willing to give more than they take. Cody really does acknowledge those people.
Yeah.
Heck, he even acknowledges the people in the back. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's just the Cody Johnson that you see on stage is the same Cody Johnson that you're going to meet anywhere on the street. He's honestly a true cowboy. He's a most humble guy you're ever going to meet. He's cut his own path. Nobody gave him anything. And I knew Cody when, you know, Cody was not Entertainer of the Year when I met him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's been awesome to watch him do the things that he's doing. He's an incredibly talented guy. He's surrounded himself with the best people. Everybody that I've ever met around him is just the best people.
Yep.
And they've all been nothing but generous, kind, and I don't think I've ever had a group of people thank me more for my service than them, you know. And when Cody played in my hometown, he brought me on stage, you know, and
Oh, that's super cool.
Honored me in front of my hometown, and it was incredibly humbling. You know, I never expected that, and he just truly made me feel like family. And I remember we were at a show, and he said, "What are you up to?" And I told him, "Well, I'm kind of got the bones together for this second book, and it's looking pretty good and this and that. And just kind of dawned on me at the time. I looked at him and said, would you be interested in writing the forward for that? He goes, I've never done anything like that before, but absolutely I would, for you for sure. Absolutely. And yeah, the time was there. I wrapped up the book and shot him a message and said, hey, got this book wrapped up. I'm going to send it to you if you start write the forward. And next thing you know, I got a copy of the forward and put it in there, and incredibly humbling. I appreciate it more than he knows.
Yeah.
It's just cool to be able to start where we both did, and the things that we've both gone through and the trials that we both went through. And I find so much inspiration from him. To do what he's done is not an easy task. To get to where he is, you have to grind harder than anybody else and outwork everybody. And when he could have took the easy path and took the rod out and made it, he refused to do it under anybody else's terms, and he wanted to do it his own way. And I see a lot of that in myself as well, and I thought, man, that's the perfect fit. And when he was willing to do it and everything else, it was just humbling. So
Yeah. It's been super inspiring. I agree with everything you said, true to who he is, and nicest guy ever. Knew him, for 10 years now too, before he was the Cody Johnson that he is now. And to be able to see that rise, like you said, doing it his way, being independent artist, selling out Houston rodeo, 60,000 people, probably could have taken a deal way before he did. Right. But it just wanted to be under his own terms. So it's definitely really cool and inspiring to see what he's been able to do.
When you tell a cowboy to take off his cowboy hat,
yeah,
you don't know who you're talking to.
You don't know exactly. For anyone watching, and thank you so much, one, for your service and for the sacrifice that you've made, but also coming and taking the time to share your story. And I know anyone listening is going to be, super not inspired, but motivated to kind of take action. And on that point, kind of to close our show today, for anyone listening that's going through a rough point in their life, or they're dealing with something, a hardship or a trial, or they have dreams or aspirations and things that they want to accomplish in their life, like, what is your advice to them to be able to get through those hard times and be able to get to that end result?
If you're still breathing air, you've already won 100% of the days you've already taken on. You're undefeated. You're literally undefeated today. There's been some hard games. You've missed some shots. You've lost some games, this and that, but everything else. But you're still here today. You're still fighting. You're still in the fight, right? That's the main thing, is staying in the fight, right? Yep. Keep moving. The minute that you stop, you're going to get pinned down by the enemy. And when you get pinned down, it gets twice as hard to move, and you're dragging assets away from other people that need them. You just have to keep moving. You just have to believe in yourself, because nobody else will believe in you until you believe in yourself. And don't listen to other people's negative things that they're going to put out there, right? Why would you listen to anybody else before you listen to yourself? Because you're the only person that truly has control over things with yourself, right? So focus on the good, build that momentum. Remember, you've already beaten 100% of the days that you've already taken on. And remember what you're shooting for. Draw out a clear path of where you want to go, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, and who that person is, and create the best new version of you every single day until you have that person that you want to be, because it can be done. I couldn't be the person that I am today the minute that I woke up in the hospital. It just wasn't possible. I had to rehab myself. That's what we have to do every single day now, is rehab ourselves to create the best version of ourselves, till we create that person that we truly, genuinely want to be. So that day when you find yourself and your metaphorically life bleeding out and your life flashes before your eyes, it's worth watching.
That's powerful.
Thanks, man.
Jack Zimmerman, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can everybody find you? Where can they find the book? I've been reading it. It's incredible. Definitely have to go check out the book. So where can everybody hear more from you?
Yeah, if you want to grab a copy of my book, best place to support me, and the book is to go to jackzimmermanusa.com or jackzimmermanmn.com. Either one works. And then you can get off Amazon. Working on it slowly but surely. If you're not a reader, we're going to have the audible version done here very soon. We got the first book cut. Just going through final edits on that, and then we'll do the second book here. Yeah, go to my website. You can reach me if you want to book me for any speaking events. That can be done on my website. And go Instagram, Jack Zimmerman USA. Look me up there on Facebook. And I'm starting to get my X rolling. I feel like I'm way behind the ball on X, but I think I'm
That'll be
one
good.
Jack Zimmerman on there. So
Yeah.
look me up. Thank you so much. It's been great meeting you. I love what you're doing here. Seems like you have just some incredible guests on that we can all take something from. So thank you for this opportunity for me
Yeah,
to come
absolutely.
share my story for the guys that drugged me off the battlefield that day.
100%. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. That was actually crazy when I asked you the question. You said, if you're breathing air, then you're winning. I'm like, damn. And also, I'm going to clip this whenever you're on Joe Rogan.
There we go.
Right here. I'm clipping this. Jack Zimmerman, Joe Rogan, we called it here.
Yeah, tweet him. Tell
It's
me.
2025. So when it happens, the prophecy has been set.
Manifesting here.
Exactly. All right. We'll see y'all next week.